Introducing Minor Wisdom Quintet.
1, 2, a skittle-diddle-doo.
Minor Wisdom.
Put on your yarmulke, here comes Hanukkah. As this drops, it's day 7, so you should be almost done. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. I apologize for the opening, but that was, just as spirit as I get for the Hanukkah. As this drops, again, like I said, it's day 7, night 8 tonight. Ooh, hope everybody had a good early Hanukkah. Those of you that celebrate, those of you that don't, it's December, so your 12 days or 25 days or whatever until 20, I don't know what you people do. You market everything, or you capitalize, or you communize. No, I don't know, man. But Merry Christmas, Happy December, all that good stuff. There'll be more episodes before that, so I don't even know why I'm wasting my time with that. This week, I've got Katy Davis. She is the last of the 3 people I interviewed at TTSF, at Thespian Festival, and love Katy. I went to college with Katy. I do know Katy well. Luckily, Katy was kind of the gateway to getting the interviews with these other 2 girls, and I'm not going to lie, it's going to sound creepy, but my podcast gear was set up in my room, in my hotel room, so I was asking strangers to come record a podcast in my hotel room at a festival, at a convention, and that's creepy. And I told them that, and I said, I know this is going to sound creepy, and it was just a horrible lead-in, but luckily Katy was there to be like, hey, you can trust him, I think. And so anyway, but Katy was one of the people that allowed me to kind of get her on record and talk to her, and it was just a fun time. We went to the University of Houston together. Go Cougs! As I record this, I'm recording this on Friday. I don't know the outcome of the UH-Cincinnati football game, which will decide the American Athletic Conference Championship, and also will decide potentially the playoffs for college football. Not that UH will get in, but Cincinnati could be removed from it if University of Houston defeats the Bearcats. What is a Bearcat anyway? I was told by a science teacher at my school that Bearcats are actually a thing. I don't believe him. What does he know? You know what I mean? Anyway, moving on. Again, still coming down from the high of State Festival from the team of BK and Troy and Amy. There are people behind the scenes that you guys don't even know. So shout out to, she's probably not listening, but Jennifer and Eddie and all these people that you kind of don't ever see, and I think that's intentional. Oh, and Tim Jakubik, Tim and Jaime, who's now at Shadow Creek, which is great for him. But anyway, these people that help run the shows, all these people. So still coming down from that high, it's great. And we're moving on to a new high, and that is the Texas Thespian Educator Conference, and the schedule is full. It's officially full, the workshop schedule. And there might be people listening to this right now, because I don't know if I'm sending out that schedule this weekend or not, that are like, well, if it's full, then are you going to tell me if I'm teaching? Yeah, you will. You will be told soon. 99% of the people that signed up are teaching. And the only reason there's a 1% is because they were after the deadline and we're full. So anyway, but I can't tell you how excited I am at the number of unique workshops that we're offering for educators. And the nice thing is we're offering workshops, and this is a plug, but also, like, I've worked my arse off to get these workshops ready for you. There are a number of workshops that are geared for you and only you. So they're very selfish as an educator or administrator or director, whatever you want to call yourself, or an artist. And then there are some that are geared for you to help students. So it's really just kind of a fun, nice thing. And then there are some that are geared to help you, like T-TAN is coming in to help teachers vouch for themselves and advocate for themselves. So lots of fun, lots of cool stuff. So I've got 2 shows going on as well. I'm actually directing shows. me. I don't have a directing background, and I absolutely love directing. I'm no good at it. I have figured out that I really like small casts. I'm directing Elf, and it opens actually this week. As this drops, it's opening Thursday, up in the Woodlands. So if you're or down, depending or over, depending on where you are. But if you're interested in coming to see Elf in the Woodlands at Class Act, you can go to classacttheater.org. And it's just kind of a nice show. It's a fun show. It's classactproductions.org, not Class Act Theater. But anyway, classactproductions.org. And you can get some tickets there for Elf. It's such a fun show, Elf. Like, such a fun show. It's kind of Shrek without all the makeup. And it's just really a really heartwarming show. The leads in the show are pretty dang talented. And even the ensemble, but, you get what you get when you're using 8 and 9-year-olds sometimes. But our girl that's playing Jovi and the kid that's playing Buddy and our Walter and the mom and the Michael and all these kids and all these adults too are just really, really fun to work with, and I really enjoy it. Plus, I also auditioned this week for my show at my school, which is new for the school, for the tech director to direct a show. But I was kind of sort of asked, and I was sort of told that it'd be cool to do it. And so I'm directing One Man, Two Governors, and I'm super excited about that. So anyway, that's really great. It's really fun. It's super awesome. I had a little chat skis with somebody. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I ain't a snitch, yo. But I had a chat with somebody about how they appreciate that every once in a while on my podcast, I'll say, hey, I just recorded everything I really wanted to say, and then I erased it and said what you're hearing now, and how that is an art within itself, how people sometimes shoot from the hip, if you will, and don't think about what they're saying. And we had an incident with that this week. I had an incident with that with somebody as well. They kind of fired off before they thought about what they were saying, and then there was an apology, and it just got awkward and all this kind of stuff. But, one of the lessons I've learned as an educator, since this is minor wisdom, is that my way of dealing with things is I type out everything, or I say everything that I want to say with nobody listening, and then I delete it. And it actually makes me feel better that I just got it out, even if nobody was listening, or nobody was reading or anything like that. And then you go back and you're very politically correct, and you have to be. You kind of, I don't know how much I believe in this, but a mentor of mine once told me, don't dress for the part you have, dress for the part you want. And so, wear a suit and tie and all this kind of stuff. And, suit and ties are expensive. So I didn't necessarily adopt that, but I feel the same way with, sending out emotional correspondence, emotional emails and things. And so just, think before you hit send sometimes. And as adults, I think we should know how to do that. I get it if it's a 14-year-old or something that just kind of shoots from the hip and stuff. But I had a couple of incidences that happened this week. Plus, I had somebody just coincidentally say, hey, I kind of think it's cool that you don't always tell us what you're actually thinking. So that said, Bobby, you can go make me a sandwich. All right. This week, again, Katy Davis, awesome, fun person. If you don't know Katy, she's one of the sweetest people, but she can shoot from the hip too, but in a smart way, in a wise way. But I love me some Katy Davis. She's been in Waco for a long time now, taught with the Glenn Price as an alum on the Minor Wisdom podcast, and just a really fun person to chat with. She's now leading the tech team design stuff at Texas Thespians, so she's got a year under her belt in person. I believe she did it last year too when we were virtual, but she's just a really, really fun person. And again, a cougar, and I don't mean that and she likes younger boys. I mean that she is a University of Houston, a cougar. So go Cougs. Enjoy this week's episode with the wonderful, the talented, the crazy Katy Davis.
So I actually started theater in high school out of spite. I've discovered most of the things. Yes, most of the things I've done in my life are out of spite.
Okay.
It's a common occurrence. Yeah, between eighth grade and ninth grade year, I was best friends with this girl that I thought was just the best person in the world. And she called me up that summer and was like, I want to be popular in high school, and I don't think I can do that with you as my friend. So it was a friendship over. Yeah, and then so when I started up in high school, I saw that she was auditioning for the school play. And I was like, I'm going to audition too, and I'm going to get the part, and she won't, and that's exactly what happened. And then
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was terrible in it. It was The Frogs. I was a Greek chorus member. Can act to save my life. Yeah. And my teacher soon discovered that. And Mr. Inger, for the next show, he put me down as his stage manager and assistant director, and I cried my eyes out.
Yeah. He knew it was best, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was like, I know you're upset, but I just see something in you. And he's like, so take the time, think it over, and let me know what you've decided if you're going to take on the role or not. Went home and cried to my mom, and she was just like, what the fuck are you crying for? My mom is not a very comforting person. So
Tough love.
Yeah, tough love.
Yeah.
And she's like, you want to do theater, don't you? And I'm like, well, yeah. She's like, then try it. You might like it. And I fell in love with it, like, within the first week. And I never did acting again after that. So when it came to, like, picking my major, I was like, we did the whole Texas college tour thing, and checked out all the technical theater departments, and University of Houston had the best one at the time. Yeah. So, did
I like
that.
how you said at the time. Anyway, we can get into that.
So after that, I was in Houston for 5 years.
Yeah.
Took me a while.
Yeah.
Wasn't the best student.
Right.
And did mostly community shows, Unheard Voices, and then in the larger theater community. And then decided, for whatever reason, I was done with theater and I wanted to do film.
Okay.
So I went out to LA and worked on some web series and did a pilot that went nowhere. And as production manager primarily, and then got a job with a production company as a development assistant, which was really cool because that was like I got to read a bunch of scripts and did coverage.
Yeah.
And if I liked a script, I could meet with the screenwriters and sometimes their agents, and I would offer suggestions to kind of maybe make it a little bit better here or whatever, anything that I thought my boss would like. And then I would be able to go in and pitch the scripts. He never took any of my pitches. But like almost every single one of them that I've pitched, it has gone on to be made. And I sit there and I see the preview and I'm like, you son of a bitch.
Because that's money to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was part of the problem. He was a trust fund guy. So he didn't have to, he wasn't in the industry to make money.
Right.
He was doing it for his art, but his art was shit.
Right.
And I'm like over there like, well, I do need to make money.
Yeah.
And he was a jerk.
Yeah.
At a certain point, like I raised up in the ranks and I was getting paid, but it was still like not through the like properly. Like I wasn't getting taxes and stuff, right? It was all cash and stuff. And we had like interns that we weren't getting paid, and we had an intern meeting one day, and he was telling them, hey, when you're here in the office, that's when you should be doing coverage and making phone calls and doing all of these other things. You should only be reading scripts at home off hours. And so after and so after the meeting was over, I one-on-one with him told him, like, you are breaking labor laws.
Right.
Like you cannot ask these kids fresh out of college, they don't know any better, to do this kind of work
On their own.
on their
time.
own. Yeah. And he yelled at me, no joke, for an hour and a half. Like, I think his role model was what's his face from Entourage, the douchebag that just yells all the time. Right? And like he just solid hour and a half. And when I walked out of that meeting with him, I walked out to the parking lot, got on the phone with my mom, and was like, I'm done here. I'm like, I don't know what that means yet. I don't know where I'm going next.
But you just knew.
But I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And so she's like, all right, well, let's figure it out. So about, at that point, I started making plans to move to Waco, because that's where she was, or she is. And so while I was making plans, I was just going to figure it out. I had no plans for employment.
Yeah.
I was like, I was going to live with her for a month until I was like thinking getting my master's somewhere.
Yeah.
And she's the CFO of Waco ISD. And so she called me one night and was just like, oh, by the way, one of our high schools, University High School, is going to create a position for the next school year for a technical director.
Yeah.
The program's grown enough now that they need one. She's like, you might want to think about it and apply.
Right.
You can get your teacher certification over the summer or whatever. And I was like, sure, okay. I'm like, I'll apply. I can do anything for a year, whatever. And
It's not even a year. It's 9 months. Anyway, continue.
right, absolutely. So I applied, and then I was Glenn Price's second choice. Make sure you put that into the podcast.
That's it stays.
I was not Glenn Price's first choice.
Yeah. Well, hey, I was the second choice of Dulles, so.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I feel you. And here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
How many? It was 6 years?
7.
7.
This is my 7th year now.
Okay. I
So-
kind of erased last year.
Oh yeah.
most
Like
of the
last
stuff.
year it was horrible.
Yeah. So 7 years. Good for you at the same school. And are you head now?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
okay.
have officially taken over as the head director, and it's hilarious because pretty much anybody who's not in the theater world stopped me at the beginning of this year to be like, "So are you taking Mr. Price's job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the head of the department. So you're gonna start teaching acting?"
No.
No, that's not what that means. You don't want me to teach acting.
Yeah.
A technical director can actually be a head of the department as well.
Yeah. As is the case in quite a few places.
Yeah.
Most notably the Woodlands High School. He's in charge of the entire performing arts. So, well, good for you. So, all right, we're done. Just kidding. So, all right. So I've known you now for, when did you come to UH? 2004?
2004. Yeah.
Okay, so I've known you since 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And we, grew in that Unheard Voices. When you said Unheard Voices just a minute or two ago, I had completely kind of blocked that out of my memory, the Unheard Voices thing.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh yeah, we did do Unheard Voices.
Yep.
That was back when the UH program, and maybe I'll get in trouble for saying all this, and you don't have to agree, or maybe you can. That was back when the UH program was run by the bachelor's, the BA program.
Yeah, it was all about the undergrad.
Yeah, all about the undergrad, not the master's, not the overgrad. You know what I'm saying? And we did all kinds of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember doing Jungle of Cities with Bernardo.
Bernardo. That was on.
Bernard is, by the way, a German cartoon animated series about a bear that doesn't talk. That's Bernard, by the way.
Okay.
So I've got 2 girls. One watched it religiously. So Bernardo Cabria, if you're listening, which you're not, my apologies for saying Bernard. But we did we put on shows ourselves.
Oh yeah. I mean,
that.
it was totally without a safety net. Jungle of Cities. That was one of the first shows I saw after high school that I was like, "Oh, theater can be this."
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen theater.
Artistic.
Yeah. I was just like, okay, I'm might be in the right place after all, because I was, freshman year is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was was filled with doubts. I was in a big city, away from family. Nobody from El Paso went to University of Houston. I knew nobody.
Yeah.
And so I was struggling, and I just remember like seeing Jungle Cities and Ebel on fucking roller skates, sucking on a lollipop and pigtails, and I'm like, what is this? I love this.
Yeah, that show, I still don't understand it, but that show was my first show to do there, because I too was kind of an outsider. I didn't come in with the same, like I came in as a quote outsider because I wasn't with Kelly in high school and didn't come in with them. I came in middle of the year, so I was in the same kind of like not sure if I fit in kind of thing. And then Bernardo came to me about Jungle of Cities for some reason. I don't know why. I still don't know why. And said, "Would you light this?" And I did. I helped light it. It was crazy. It's so fun to look back on, but also at the same time frustrating.
I mean, like Proto Hobo.
Was
Was my first big show, and I remember like being so overwhelmed with it, but at the same time, like, because I was a stage manager, and that was.
Can you please? I know the answer to this, but can you please explain what Proto Hobo's about?
Okay, so Proto Hobo was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was written by Greg Hundemer, directed by Bernardo Cupria.
Who is still relevant in the world of writing.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah. And it is about a android that was created by the mad scientist named Shelley.
Oh, you know, like super details.
I was stage manager.
Yeah. Okay.
Who created him to help her take over the world, and she created him as a hobo to collect the world's change, because that was going to help her take over the world if she had all the change, and. He was horrible as a hobo at first because he had no soul. Because nobody would give him his change, give them their change.
Yeah.
So then she had to install a soul into the android, and that when she did that, then all of a sudden he was able to fall in love with the hobess. As Greg made sure he corrected us every single night, and was like, not Lady Hobo, it's hobess. And they fall in love, but the hobess... No, there was another hobo that was in love with the hobess, and he got mad about Proto Hobo, and when he discovered that Proto Hobo was actually an android, he told everybody, and Proto Hobo was crucified at the end.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. We staged this on Easter weekend, by the way.
That I don't
People
remember.
walked out at the end. We had a couple of people when Proto Hobo literally got crucified at the end. We had audience members walk out offended. It was awkward.
And was that done at UHD, or was that done on
Yes.
the main okay.
Yeah, it was through because Greg did it for his honors college thesis.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. So, I wanted, when I learned about hobess, because I remember that as well, I wanted Greg, I don't think I ever told Greg this, but I think I told like Kelly or Timmy or something like that, but I wanted Greg to write in a robot hobo that was a prostitute so that we could call her Ho-Ho.
Nice.
Anyway, if you haven't seen Proto Hobo,
It was a
you
musical too. I think I failed to mention that it was a musical, and that Greg wrote a score for an oboe purely because it rhymed with hobo. Yeah, that was.
I think I remember that too.
Yeah.
Wow. Memories, man. And I just, UH at that time, I just remember it being so like, just kind of you do whatever you want. It was very artistically free, I guess. And I can't say that it's not like that now. I don't know. I've got some former students there, as you might too. But I do know that the master's program drives a lot of their content now.
Yeah.
Not a negative thing. But it's just different. Just different than when we were there. So what when you came to Waco, were you at teaching wise when you came to Waco and started teaching? Were you nervous, scared, confident?
Oh.
Like what were you? What
I
were
had
you like?
no idea what I was doing.
When did you figure out you knew what you were doing?
Never.
Still haven't.
I think it's weird. I tell this to the kids too. Like that first year, like almost every single month, I was like, can I make it another month? Like I honestly didn't know. It was so hard, and I was like, I felt like I wasn't reaching the kids. I felt like I was dumb, that I was out of touch.
Yeah. But you don't still feel that way.
No, not at all.
Not knowing what you're doing is different than feeling
That way.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so, like, I would say, like, the first 2 years in particular, when May came around and they were, like, offering my contract to me and being like, do you want to sign a new contract? It was very hesitant, like,
Sure.
you know, okay, I think I can do it. I think, yes, one more year. I can give you one more year. And then all of a sudden that third year came around in May, and they gave me the contract, and I was like, I remember just taking it and being like, what? And then just handed it off, signed it and handed it, and like didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And it was like, as soon as the paper left my hand, though, I had that moment of like, oh, that was my contract for a fourth year.
I feel a little more comfortable now.
And so, yeah, and so now it's just like, oh no, I think before I've never been a career person, right? Like even in LA when I was doing gig to gig to gig, you know, and I was like, I never saw myself like necessarily laying down roots career-wise. I wanted to travel. I wanted, you know,
Work the system a little bit.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden I'm kind of like, oh wait, no, I think this is maybe my career. I actually enjoy I've developed curriculum.
Yeah.
You know, I built that program over at university from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't ever had another tech director there. And I don't know that I'm doing everything right by any means. And I tell the kids all the time, I'm like, hey, there are so many people have other ways of doing things.
Doing what is right and doing what is right and doing what is right by your kids are two different things.
Oh yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah. So I'm not saying like put your platforms together with bubblegum, but you know what I mean by that. Which, by the way, certain bubblegum is better than others. You know.
Oh yeah,
double bubble's amazing. To put platforms together.
Yeah.
Super strong, that double bubble. Don't get that sugar-free crap.
Joe Blow.
Nah. This is the PD part of this podcast. So if you're not interested in learning how to put bubblegum platforms together, turn it off. That's funny. So what is the most challenging show you've done at university? And then, obviously, why? Why was it the most challenging? Are you more of a music? You don't seem as much of a musical person.
I am not a musical person.
You're like the. I want to do a nice 2-act drama or comedy.
Yeah, I'm much more into dark comedy. Like The Pillow Man's probably one of my favorite shows ever written.
Okay.
I've never.
Have you done it?
No.
Oh, do you think they would let you?
I would love to. Yeah. I've pushed. I did The Shape of Things. For my directorial debut. Price was like, hey, I want you to direct something. Black box, small, intimate show. And at the time, I'd had my first kid that I'd had as a freshman was a senior. So it was my fourth year teaching at that point. And her first year in varsity, so her sophomore year, didn't have time to do a project for them at the end of the year. And I was like, go read a play and then pitch it to me. Yeah. And then I gave them like this, basically what had been my job in LA, a pitch project. Sure. And so she had picked The Shape of Things, and she put together this fabulous pitch. And so then when Price came to me 2 years later and was like, hey, I want you to direct, I turned to her and I grabbed her pitch off of my shelf, and I was like, you want to do this? Yeah. And so the two of us directed The Shape of Things, and it was amazing. So that was probably my not your question. Yeah. Answer the question you didn't ask. So I loved that. But most challenging, is probably, I think, Adam's Family, because we didn't get a run in until opening
Until
night.
opening. Yeah,
So that was really frustrating to me as a tech director.
yeah.
You know, I felt like there was just so, and it's frustrating to kids as a tech team when, they don't get a chance to rehearse their cues.
Sure.
And they don't see the show front to back, and so it hurts retention in the program. It has that whole ripple effect, and I felt very angsty and angry for a while after Adam's Family closed, because I was just like, we had been working on it, because I had even had kids give up summertime because it was our fall show, and budget doesn't open until top of September,
Right.
and we're like, we're not going to be able to build a 2-story set and do all the things we need to do for Adam's Family in a month. So we were using the previous year's budget, so that meant I had to actually order things over the summer, and kids were coming in and working over the summer to get, so like my side of the kids had put in 4 months of work,
Right.
and then
didn't
we
have
didn't
that-
get a tech week,
They
and we
didn't have
didn't,
that payoff.
yeah, and so it was hard.
Yeah, that's a fun show though.
It is.
Yeah, it is a, especially if you grew up watching the Addams Family.
Oh, yeah.
At any point, but
I loved my design for it.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was really stoked about that, and
so do you fancy yourself as a designer?
now, yes.
Okay.
At the that was one of the scariest things for me at the beginning of the
Right.
job.
Right.
Was like I was always kind of a technician.
But you took the same classes I took.
Yeah.
At UH.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now you are more confident in your ability to design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because you were always the binder girl, like the one that had all of her shit together and knew where people were supposed to be when and what time and all that kind of stuff. The stage manager, really. So and a lot of people don't. I think there's a little bit of a stigma that a stage manager is not a designer, and vice versa, because usually a designer's not as organized or artistic, really. But yeah. So you.
I mean, I felt that way big time.
Yeah.
Like when I knew that was going to be a big part of my job, I was like, I don't know how to design.
Yeah. So what?
I know how to build.
What was
No.
your kind of like breaking point? Like, or not in a negative way, breaking point. I mean, like, when was it like that you were like, oh, like I'm not half bad at this. Like,
Kind
build
of
your confidence a little bit.
probably like just diving back into it
Yeah.
in general, because I hadn't touched theater in almost 5 years
Right.
too when I first
When
started.
you left to go to LA.
Yeah, I had done a couple of stage management stuff, but nothing like what I had done at U of H.
Yeah.
And so that was part of my trouble, my lack of confidence. And then I discovered weirdest thing in some ways, actually. I found buried in all of my college papers and stuff, all of my notes from theater history with Shimko, of all
So you
things.
had I had Warnig.
Okay.
Yeah, I had Amy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah.
And going through all of that and being like, oh, I remember this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and just refreshing about theater history and theater genres and stuff. And then that, led to that rabbit trail of, absurdism. And what does absurdism look like? And then what does naturalism look like? And so, kind of going through it that way.
Right.
And then, Googling and buying all the textbooks because I'm a book nerd and
Right.
binder girl, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I want diagrams.
Yeah.
And I was good. I'm a good drafter. I
Okay.
felt when I took that course with Kevin Rigdon,
Kevin Rigdon. Yeah.
I fell in love with that.
Yeah.
But then when I took his set design course, he hated me because I was just like, I don't have the artistic
Because
vision.
Terra Nova is boring AF.
Yes, that too. That too.
I love, I do love me some Kevin Rigdon, but man, I wish he had changed up the Terra Nova thing. But anyway,
So.
all right, cool. So, what have you, as kind of a analytical person. I mean, not analytical.
No, I am.
You know, you're somewhat analytical, but as that sort of X's and O's type of person, have you? I'm asking you this selfishly, personally, because
Okay.
I'm not very analytical when it comes to theater, and so when I am trying to teach management of any kind, stage management, production management, whatever, I struggle in sort of conveying what I want, what I want you to take away from this production, or what I need you to facilitate or manage, really, for lack of better words. So what do you find is a good tactic or technique to teach your kids how to be better managers? Because sometimes management is, you're just kind of born knowing how to stay focused and organized and stuff like that. So is there something that you teach your kids to do, or?
So I'm a big proponent, honestly, of throwing them in the deep end.
Yeah.
Like, right from the
just let 'em
get-go.
learn by the fire.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, not completely unsupported. I show them how to put together the binder and all the forms and everything.
Yeah.
I make all the copies and stuff for them, and we kind of do a walkthrough and or a talk through of what that looks like.
Right.
But kids don't actually listen, right? So they sit there and they're like making eye contact
Well-
with you and nodding, and then they're like,
But do they not listen? They don't. Anyway, continue. Sometimes I feel like they are, but they're not listening the way we listen to each other.
that's probably fair.
Okay, but continue. Sorry.
And so then kind of throw them in the deep end after
Yeah.
that. And then they usually come to me in a panic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're like, I didn't do
You
the
haven't
things.
taught me anything. It's
Yeah.
like, no, actually, I have.
And so then we sit down and I let them vent,
Mm-hmm.
and because there's usually a lot of venting happening. And so it's actually one of the things that I stress at the beginning of my Tech 1 class. I spend 2 weeks teaching, because it's 2 weeks are those crappy weeks anyway, where kids are trying to get out of your class and
Yeah.
getting schedule changes and all of that. So I actually spend the first 2
Hey,
weeks.
miss. Yeah.
And then on something I actually learned from Claire Marie, of all people, the 3 C's of theater: communication, collaboration, and compromise.
I
And
thought one of those C's would be Claire Marie. Anyway, continue. Communication, collaboration,
And compromise.
Claire Marie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, such an asshole.
All right, go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
Anyway, and so I spent 2 weeks teaching them that, and then when my stage managers come to me all like in a tizzy, and they're like, "You haven't taught me anything and everything," I bring it back around to those things, because I'm like, you can't be an asshole as a stage manager. Like, I mean, I have had, because that was never my technique, and I actually had a lot of people try to tell me that I'm not being mean enough.
Right.
And I'm like,
I think I remember that. But yeah.
I'm like, why do you think a stage manager has to be mean?
Right. Right.
Like, I'm sorry, that's horrible management style.
Yeah.
And so like, I was like, you need to just communicate with them and make sure your expectations are wholly, completely communicated, so that they can't come to you and say that they've misunderstood. And make sure, and like, we have stupid games of communication in those first 2 weeks, and then we move on to collaboration, where they have to they get into a team and they have to collaborate with each other and do all the things, and then they realize, I'm like, oh, we use those communication skills you talked about a couple days ago in order to collaborate better. And then we talk about the shittiest part of the 3 C's, which is compromise, because nobody likes to do that. And I'm honest with them about it, about how crappy compromise can be. And I've always been good about being honest with the kids too, that I think that they appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and so my stage managers, kind of trying to bring it back around, like I tell them right up front, this is a hard job. You're, at sometimes it feels very unrewarding, because you are the first ones in and you are the last ones out. And you kind of have to learn how to juggle
Yeah.
all the things, the designers and the actors' egos and the director's egos and your own ego, because you're not egoless yourself.
Right.
But it's also when, for me anyway, and kind of I think my stage managers end up feeling this way too, that when that production actually does get up on its feet and it feels like more of the stage manager's baby than anybody else's, because they were involved in every aspect. You know, they knew the designer's conversations, they knew the director's concept, they were there for the backstage battles and the drama between the actors. Like every inch of that show they know.
Yeah.
And
So you mentioned the compromise part about where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit is you said the compromise part sucks. So what I tried to maybe not directly instill in my kids is that compromise can be the most rewarding element, because selfishly, when you compromise with somebody and you still make it work and make it successful, it becomes the most rewarding element. Because look, I was able to let you have what you want, and I got what I want, but I was able to make it more without you kind of knowing. You know what I mean? Like I was still, I mention Shark Tank all the time on here. Like one of the things I love about Shark Tank is, do you watch Shark Tank? Mm-hmm. So one of the things I love about it is like, they sit there and they, and we only see 8 to 10 minutes of like the whole hour that they were actually in that room or something. They edit it down for dramatic purposes. But they show you the end result, which is a lot of times they get a deal and they're compromising. They're saying, hey, I'm coming in here, I want 10%. And then the shark says, I want 20. And then they say, what about 15? And then they shake and they get a deal and they get $300,000. It's like, I just got what I wanted. Like, and I know those sharks are in on they're lowballing us, or they're high, whatever, the valuation is higher than what they probably earn or should get. But there's that compromise element of like, no, I'm still getting what I want.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's still kind of rewarding, but.
No, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I try to, it's just such a unfriendly word.
Sure. It's, our principal, quote unquote, upper school person says, don't ever let me hear you say that your class is more rigorous, because rigor is associated with rigor mortis, which is associated with death. So it's not a friendly word. So anyway, continue. So I'm just trying to relate the two, but yeah.
Yeah. So like, I feel like the kids, they kind of shut down with that whenever I try to be like, oh, but the compromise can be great or whatever. And so I try to be open with how unfriendly that word is at the beginning, because they hear that and they feel like they're not getting anything that they want.
Yeah, okay.
And the opposite is true, because you're absolutely right.
You're
like
fooling them a little bit.
You are getting what you want.
Yeah.
You're just having to maybe give up a little tiny piece of it.
It's got a little corner.
Cut a little corner here.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Like my kids, we did Wait Until Dark for our fall show this year, and the director was insistent that it had to be black and white.
Right.
That was his whole concept, was this film noir, good versus evil, black and white thing.
Yeah.
And the kids were stymied by it for the longest time, and they were so frustrated.
Yeah.
And they kept trying to find ways to introduce color.
Yeah.
And they kept trying to put me in the middle of it. And I was like, for the first time ever, I'm like, run it by Mr. Stanley.
Yeah.
He's your director.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
And so they kept having to go into his other classes and be like, okay, so what if we did this? And every time he was just like, I want black and white.
Yeah.
I want black and white. And so, but they would go back to the drawing board, and then they eventually, so I kept telling them textures. He wants black and white, look at textures.
Right.
Figure out what you can do with textures. And so little by little, they started to figure that out, and they started to find things and do different things. And then those fuckers got top 5 dramatic display bullshit. So, like, they could turn around and tell me, we didn't like his concept, and and I'm like, but you pulled it off.
Yeah. You figured it out.
You figured it out, you idiots. I'm a great teacher.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I can't be as like that as much anymore in private world.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I mean, with my kids at Dulles, man, I was always like that. I was like, you dumbasses, like just relax, just chill. And my favorite thing as we record this last week was Ava's last soccer game of the year, and I'm the loud dad, shocked, right? That's on the sideline that's yelling like, "Girls, come on, spread out, run," all this kind of stuff. And I yell out at one point, "Girls, you just need to relax." And I'm like, but I'm tense and yelling it. And my wife looks at me and is like, Blake, do you think maybe you need to relax?
Yeah.
So, well, that's good. What about design? Because I don't want to hear about first couple of years, but like now, being that design isn't really your background, you have come to do it and be good at it. But how have you become a design teacher when that's not really your bag, as Austin Powers would say? Like is it theater, performance. So like as a theater artist, you can say that's good, that's bad. Here's what I would do different. Here's what I like, that kind of stuff. But it's still not teaching necessarily design. Do you kind of go about it as the same way that you mentioned trial by fire or just throw them in the deep end? Do you say, okay, I need a bedroom, whatever. I need a bedroom, go draw a bedroom, and then bring it back to me, and now I can tell you what to manipulate and change? Or do you start with your kids from scratch in the design world?
A little bit from scratch. So, because like I'm a that binder textbook nerd.
The binder girl. Like
Yeah,
you said, yeah.
right. I mean, through and through, 100%. All right, like
Yeah.
I brought up Shimko
It's a
and
new
his
tattoo.
and his
Anyway,
new.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
totally gonna
Binder
do it.
girl,
Yeah. I brought up Shimko and his theater history notes and stuff because he was such an animated professor.
Yes.
I hope he's not listening to this because that guy doesn't need a bigger ego.
Yeah. He's not, but he's busy. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
He's egotistical to a fault, but also to like success too.
Right.
I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
Right.
yeah, he's done well.
he's done well.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so going through that, I'm like, because taking his class was actually for me. Not only was it a great theater history class, but it was a great art history class, right? And so then I started going to museums all the time and figuring out art styles and art history and finding all these wonderful artists. And like, so in LA, that was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
I would just spend whole weekends at LACMA or wherever.
Did you go under the what is that rock or whatever, that thing that's like being held up, like you walk?
Oh,
under
yeah.
I forget it's near La Brea, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Yes, I mean, I loved it. And so for me, whenever I immediately go to the research.
Sure.
So whenever we start a show, I'm like, what's
Okay.
the time period? Find me,
The dramaturg element.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they put together their inspiration boards. I tell them, like, you can't look at Broadway shows.
Right.
You can maybe look at college level shows and see what they did, but we don't have Broadway money. Why are you looking at that?
Sure.
So,
There's
like,
another shirt. We don't have Broadway money. Anyway, yeah, that's great.
and so, and they just collage, and actually they don't collage because I hate collages. That's one of my least
board
favorite
it
things.
A little bit. Like they
Yeah.
put together ideas.
Yeah, because I hate the stupid inspiration board element of
right.
the UIL contest because it's not how designers work.
Exactly.
But like they put together just Google slides of just images and just
Right.
throw them all up there, and then I'm like, all right, so now we have an idea of how it should look. Now let's go through the script requirements and what needs to be in there.
Right.
And I'm like, so it says we need to have a mirror. What did mirrors look like in that time period? Well, look, you have a mirror image right there. I was like, so how do we design that with the kind of budget that we have?
Right.
And so that's kind of where I come from, just purely. And then I teach paper drafting skills still. We don't have computer.
Yeah.
I couldn't teach it even if we did. I didn't learn it.
It's that same idea. Not to cut you off. It's the same idea to like teaching sound. Like I've never taught straight to the digital board because if you don't know, it's kind of like keyboarding on a computer. If you don't know how the keyboard works, you're not going to be able to use the computer.
Right.
So you have to be able to teach analog, and with drafting, like I'm the same way. I teach hand first because if you don't know the basic hand techniques or even the terminology, you're not going to succeed in CAD.
No.
At least not immediately. I mean, yes, you can sit there and teach yourself over time, but it's a quicker education if you know those basic elements. But anyway.
No, I feel the same way, and I went to one of the UIL Student Activities conferences this year at UT Arlington, and their new design teacher up there, when he found out that I teach hand drafting still, and that when I come to my stagecraft unit, I actually teach all the tools, all the power tools and everything still, and I spend a couple days on the tape measure and all of that, and he was just like, thank you.
Yeah.
He's like, the amount of college kids that we have coming in that have never touched a miter saw. He's like, it's astounding to me.
It is crazy. I've interviewed a couple of university, college type people, JUCO places and stuff, and they always have different things that they think we should do better as high school teachers. But one of those things, is just those basic skills. So I have one last question for you.
Yes.
I'm gonna get you out on this. What is that bitch doing that you beat out for a role? What is she doing now?
I'll talk to her.
Minor wisdom.